About 5 years ago, my Audrey developed a small lump on her side that looked pretty sinister. So the first thing I did was recruit the help of all my vet friends. And luckily, I have access to the very best vets in the world, thanks to my job at Dogs Naturally. So I learned some pretty important things about treating tumors along the way. And I avoided some really common but big mistakes. And I want to share it all with you right here. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel, and if you're on YouTube, click the alert notification. So here's the tumor I found on Audrey's side. Now, once I found it, the first decision I had to make was whether to stick a needle into the tumor to figure out whether it was cancer or not. Now, most vets will want you to do this, but I was really against it, and a lot of my vet friends agreed. And this is important to understand because biopsy or needle aspiration can seed the cancer cells, which means that they can metastasize or spread to other parts of the body. Now, cancer cells are cells that have already gone rogue, so they're really predisposed to running off on their own and growing out of control. The needle can pick up cancer cells, and the cancer can then get into the circulation or the fluid around the tissues, which opens up the roadways for it to travel through the body. So I decided to forego the biopsy, and I just assumed that this nasty looking thing was cancer. And whether it was cancerous or not, it was important to make sure that the lump didn't grow quickly. And by avoiding biopsy, I was doing everything I could to make sure that those cancer cells stayed on Audrey's skin and didn't travel to important organs. So the next choice I had to make was whether to remove it surgically, burn it off, or just do nothing and see if it grew. And I'll be honest, the vets I spoke to had different opinions on this. Now here's Audrey's tumor again, and you can see it's pretty small, and it was the only one I could see on her. And it didn't feel like there was anything underneath it. It really felt like it was just on the surface. But clearly, this wasn't just a lipoma. The lesions on the skin made me really suspicious that this was a mast cell tumor or even hemangiosarcoma. Now, lipomas are just bumps. You don't usually see changes on the skin. But I decided to do nothing and just watch it and see what the tumor would do. And within a week, I could already see that it was growing. So I knew that I had to make a decision, or the tumor could potentially grow out of control or move to other more important organs, not just the skin. Now, I have a friend whose dog had a tumor that was really similar to Audrey's, and it was in the same place, just behind the rib cage. My friend waited and tried to manage it with supplements, which I'm certainly not against. In fact, I have a video that tells you about the supplements I use for cancer. I'll leave a link in the description, and there's a link up here. But that tumor kept growing like Audrey's was, and when they finally had to go in to remove it, the tumor was way bigger than it appeared, and it had attached to the dog's ribs and organs. So not only did they have to remove the tumor, but they had to remove a lot of ribs too, making the surgery much more invasive. So I knew that if I waited too long, I could have had the same problem where the tumor was stuck to Audrey's ribs, or worse yet, one of her organs. Now, the thing about cancer cells is that they're sticky. Most cells will distance themselves from each other, but cancer cells will just stick to anything around them, which makes them so dangerous and invasive. So now I had two choices left: cryotherapy, which is freezing the tumor off, or just remove the whole thing. I had one vet recommending cryotherapy and more than one telling me that surgery was the way to go. Now, cryotherapy is done by freezing the cells by injecting liquid nitrogen into the tumor, and this kills the cancer cells. Listen, it's a great choice if the tumor is in a place that would make surgical removal hard, like in the mouth or for small skin lesions, which admittedly was what I thought Audrey had. But I decided to do surgical removal because I was concerned about what might be underneath that lump. Also, Audrey was a young, active, and healthy 10-year-old dog at the time, and I didn't think surgery would be much of a risk for her. If she was much older, I'd definitely have considered cryotherapy instead. So next, I had to leverage my contacts to find a vet who would work with me. Going to the vet is stressful, even for a seasoned show dog like Audrey, who's traveled to more states and provinces than most people. But I found a vet who'd allow me to stay with Audrey and right up until she was sedated, and they allowed me to pick her up right after she woke up from surgery and was stable. Now, to me, it's important that dogs aren't stressed during surgery, and being with their people is an important part of their recovery. Now, I also needed a vet who'd work with me and allow me to use natural supplements or homeopathic remedies if I needed them. Now, this part was hard, and I found myself traveling 18 hours to find that vet, and I had to really use my network to find him. I wouldn't have done that if Audrey wasn't a good traveler, but one of her favorite places was the car, so this didn't worry me. If she didn't love the car, I certainly would have had fewer choices, and I would have found a vet closer to home. Now, another thing that's worth considering is if you want a board-certified surgeon or an oncologist to remove the tumor. The important thing about removing tumors is to make sure you get all of the tumor out. You don't want to put your dog through the surgery for nothing. So I think it's important that your vet knows how to do this type of surgery, and he has a fair bit of experience. Most vets are generalists and they do a lot of surgeries, so you do have to decide whether you want to bring in the big expensive guns to get that tumor out or trust that your own vet has the experience and the know-how to make sure there's enough tissue removed. Removing a tumor is just a lot like removing a tree. It looks simple enough to remove, but cancer cells have roots, and you have to make sure that you don't leave any roots behind. So ask your vet how experienced she is at removing tumors, and discuss the option of having a board-certified oncologist do the surgery if your budget allows it and if you can find one that you like. So even though Audrey's lump was super small, it was really about the size of the tip of your thumb. When the surgery was done, they showed me the size of the tumor that was hiding underneath. Here's a picture of a mammary tumor from one of my other dogs, Alice, and you can see that what looks like just a small lump that's just on the surface could be hiding something a whole lot larger underneath. Audrey's tumor was just as large, and of course, I had no way to tell just by looking at it and feeling it. By the time they got enough tissue to be certain that they got all the tumor, they removed the equivalent of a softball, and Audrey had an 8-inch scar. But it was the best chance I could give her for a long life afterward. The tumor was sent out to a lab afterward to be analyzed, and when I got the results back, it was a low-grade mast cell tumor that had a pretty low risk of spreading or growing. And by the way, Alice's mammary tumor that I showed you was benign, and she's doing just fine. So here's what I want you to think about if you see a tumor or a lump on your dog. First of all, don't panic. You've got a few days to get a second opinion and consider what works with your budget and your comfort level. And I hope that means that you don't rush into a biopsy. If it's in your budget, it's likely just as well to just remove the tumor and get it tested then. And second, just because it feels and looks small doesn't mean that it is. You don't want to wait too long to take action because those sticky cancer cells could be attaching to things that they shouldn't be. So I hope my experience helps you out, and I hope you never have to apply any of this with your dog. And as always, if you have any questions, just leave a comment below and check out the links for more information. And if you like this video, please make sure you like it, share it, and tell people about it. Thanks for watching.